Jump on in and say what's up when you do. We're live now, and we're ready to talk through this slate, but I want to wait for a few people to come on in. I do want to throw another shout out to Rody, to Rody51 for taking down the live seat for the baseball. That's pretty freaking awesome. The guy is a monster, and I know it was up and down there for a little bit for him, but I'm ready for the hot streak from Rody, and you guys check him out on State Kings, everywhere else. Rody is the man, and is definitely in line to keep making a lot of money this year. So big congrats to Rody for a big night. Hopefully we can all continue that tonight. We've had some good runs lately. The projections have been nice. A little more chalk is hitting in baseball than usual. So that's always going to be a little bit of a, up and down kind of swing type of thing for me. But there's not going to be a crazy amount of chalk outside of a few positions tonight, in my opinion. And obviously there will be some pitching chalk, but I'm okay with always eating pitching chalk. I don't care if I like it. And I don't like that much pitching tonight. So I am sort of spreading out, but keeping my highest owned guys. I'm going to say what's up when you pop on in, and I'm going to go through real quick my plays everywhere. You can check out my cores on FanDuel. I'll give you some percentages of some guys I owned. I did my early builds. I've shifted them a little bit, but they're basically pretty similar to what they originally were. So Manaea is my highest owned pitcher. I do have a good amount of Cortez because I think it's just easy enough to get him in. I don't feel great about it. I'm playing a lot of Dylan Cease and Strider just for the strikeout upside. These guys have 7.5 K props when nobody else has a 5.5. It's just hard. So I'm going to actually play those guys together, embrace some variance. I have a little bit of guys like Contreras, Marco Gonzalez, a little bit of Zach Gallen, a little bit of, I threw Kyle Gibson into a lineup, a little bit of Kevin Gausman. I think Gausman is the one I'm probably should get a little bit more overweight on, just thinking about it out loud. And I'm probably going to have to try and do that just because I think that it makes just a little too much sense to me to not have a little more Gausman. And I've got so much Manaea, I think I can shift some of those with some 2v2s to some Gausman. So again, congrats to Rody. These are my pitching options. I'm going to go through some of my positions. I love Washington tonight, so they're probably my top stack. I actually love Pittsburgh as well. I think Pittsburgh's going to get some ownership tonight. That's fine with me. I don't mind it. Again, it's a big slate. There's a lot of things you can do different. And like I said, I have Cease in 30% of my lineups, and I've got Strider in 30%, both with upside. I think Strider will be more popular. I think people are afraid of Cease in the matchup. I'm going to take a gamble on the guys with the highest K props pretty much every time. So you got Cortez and Manaea, who are the most popular, and I think it's for good reason, but I don't think that it wouldn't surprise me if a million different guys ended up winning this slate. In terms of positions in the ownership, I'm actually just getting an updated look right now. I actually looking at it now that I'm seeing Pittsburgh as being less owned than I would have thought, and that's fine with me. Washington, I am very, very high on, and I don't expect them to have much ownership. So I'm sort of okay with my stacks being the other ones. And then I'm mixing those Washington-Pittsburgh stacks with Houston, LA, who are a little more popular, and then some KC stacks as well with some St. Louis as well. And I'm going to add a little more Gausman to my mix just because I don't see there's any reason why he couldn't be the highest scoring player on the slate. So, let's see. Brody says, who did it say you pair together for pitching? I said Season Strider together. Look, you got the guys with 2 full strikeouts higher prop than anybody else on the slate. Even in dangerous hitting conditions and all these things, I just think it's worth gambling on those. It just makes the most sense. You have the maximum upside and the best strikeout pitcher, one of the best strikeout pitchers in baseball in Cease, and then a guy who will be one of the best for a long time in Strider. So I really like that. What's up to K9 in the chat over there with Rody? And Rody, of course, after the big victory, we're expecting big things again tonight from Rody. So let us know what you're doing while we're in here, Rody. Even if you're not on the show, we always want to hear your thoughts. And I'm going to go through some positions. So Keeper Ruiz, just because I have so much Washington, is going to end up at about a third of my lineups on DraftKings. I love both. I don't mind the lefty even for Melendez. So I love both of the catchers from Kansas City. I like Stassi quite a bit, especially in the stacks. And then Contreras, Wilson Contreras is my favorite one-off if I just had to pick one guy to play. I ended up with a ton of Vogelbach, and then I pivoted over to some Chavez as well because I like the spending down at first base today. There's some great options. I also have a lot of Josh Bell, and I am playing some Kirilloff in a couple Minnesota stacks. Jared Walsh in the Angels stacks. Second base, Whit Merrifield, Jose Altuve stand out as both of parts of stacks and guys who I like on their own. Otherwise, you get the Cardinals guys, Donovan and Gorman. And then in my Boston stacks, I will use a little bit of Trevor Story. Third base, I'm using a lot of, again, I like Pittsburgh, so I've got a lot of Cabrian Hayes. I've got a lot of Rafael Devers. I've got a lot of Jose Ramirez. I've got a lot of Nolan Arenado. So those are basically my third basemen because I have a lot of each of them. I am using a little bit of Bregman more so on FanDuel. Shortstop, I really like Bobby Witt today. I like part of the KC stack, maybe even a mini stack. O'Neal Cruz again at 2K is going to get some of my money. I like this kid, and I am playing a lot of Pittsburgh, so it makes some sense. I also like Tommy Edman, Xander Bogaerts, and Carlos Correa would be the following guys for me. Favorite outfielder is going to be Juan Soto. I have probably a little too much Nelson Cruz, but that's because I like the Washington stacks a lot. And even though he struggled, he still has the power. Then I'm going to mix in a lot of Pittsburgh, a lot of Sawinski. I'm going to play some Madries in some of those lineups. I'm going to play a lot of Trout. I've got a ton of on DraftKings right now. I got a lot of Ohtani, Hunter Dozier. If you're going to play the other, you could play Santana at first base, Dozier in the outfield if you want to, if you're into the Royals stack, or you could play Dozier at first base. First base is pretty loaded today, so I actually found myself wanting to use that outfield position. Usually I'd use Ohtani at first more often, but I think first base is just stacked up with guys I really like today that are cheap, and that is what I elected to do, for better or worse. So that's sort of a quick rundown of what I've got. I've got Washington, Pittsburgh, with Houston, LA, and KC as being my favorite options here today. Why don't you guys tell me a little bit about what you're doing? Rody can maybe shed some light on what he's thinking right now. Oh, a couple good one-offs. I mentioned Contreras is a one-off. I have a lot of Trey Mancini one-offs. I'm not stacking up Baltimore. I don't mind it, but I'm not stacking them up as much because of Fetty's ground ball rate. But I think we can get away with it with a couple plays there. And my favorite one being Mancini. If you want to get a little mini stack, you can go 1, 2, 3 in that order, or you can go what I like a little bit better, 2, 4, 6 with or even 2, 3, 6 or 2, 5, 6. Any way you look at it, I do like Adley Rutschman, who's the one catcher I forgot to mention that I will have some exposure to. Rody likes the Steve Strider. All right, he likes Houston and Pittsburgh a lot again. So Rody and I a lot on the same page. I haven't built as many full-on Houston stacks, more using Houston as mini stacks, but I would like to get to more Houston. It's just hard on DK to find the room to get them. If you do get them, you can play them with Pittsburgh. That's the team you play them with, I think. Houston's been a pretty big letdown all year from an offensive perspective. Not the whole lineup, of course, but just in general, they've sort of not really broken as many slates as we're used to them breaking. They're a good baseball team, so they were still winning a bunch of games, but it's just maybe not quite what we'd hope for from them. Yeah, the Atlanta one, I like that call, Rody. And so Atlanta, I ended up stacking all over the place on FanDuel, sort of as a little bit of a hedge because I'm not playing them as much on DraftKings. I'm not playing as many lineups on FanDuel. But I do really like the Atlanta stack as well. First of all, I think Descalfani is actually not that bad. He looked bad, and he's coming back from an injury. So, and then you've got a pretty good bullpen behind him. That's the only thing that worries me. It is great hitting weather in Atlanta. It's 95 degrees. It's just, you couldn't ask for much better hitting weather. So I don't mind any of that stuff. I wouldn't even mind if you're not playing Strider to take a shot on some Giants. At these prices on this slate, big of a slate, hard for me to commit to that. But you do have Luis Gonzalez at 2.9. I mean, they're not all expensive. I just don't want Longoria. Luis Gonzalez, Yastrzemski, and Jock would probably be my favorites along with Belt. But I do think that's a viable route. If we're going to talk about, with these young guys who are studs, they're going to have some really bad off games. And we know Strider can get kind of wild. And if he has one of those, if you're wild with the Giants, you're not going to get away with much. But I'm still betting on the Strider side of things. I just also think the Giants deserve a little bit of a, hey, this is that weird team that could break the slate. It's more of a, hey, that's what you play in the $15 5 million person tournament, because if it hits, you could make a fortune off of that one, because no one is going to be playing any of the Giants at all. And Strider, as much talent as he has with these young, really, really talented kids, we see that there's definitely two sides to them. You know what I mean? You have the massive blow up side of them. So that's something I think is interesting. I probably should hedge a little bit with Toronto because I've got so much of C's, but I am not finding myself with getting quite to that stack. And even if C's is bad, like he had 7 walks in his last game, which is crazy. He also had 8 strikeouts. He still put up 26 fantasy points. That was 7 hits. He had 7 walks a few starts back against Tampa Bay, which also not that bad of an outing considering. I mean, he only gave up, what did he give up runs wise? He gave up 2 runs in that game, 7 walks. He only allowed 1 hit. He's got a monster leash, Cease. Like he's throwing, every game 108, 101, 110, 108. And I just believe in the strikeout upside. I always want to bet on that side. So I'm just going to keep defending my play with Cease, knowing that it's going to kill me probably 40% of the time here or 30% of the time. But I think he also gets to be the top pitcher on the slate. I don't know, 15 to 25% of the time. I think it's higher than people have out there for him. So I really like that. Tell me what you guys are doing on FanDuel. Again, I told you I play a little more Atlanta. It's a little more flexible. I've got my main pitcher as Manaea, which I have on both sites. But I also have some Cortez, some Strider, and some Cease again. Cease being my favorite low-owned option, if you want to call it that. I just think that there's a lot of value in what Cease can do. So that's pretty much my quick rundown. I don't have a whole lot else to dive into. I am curious what else you guys are doing. So fire it on in there. Fire on any questions. Fire on any thoughts. Talk a little bit about what you're doing on the slate. We don't have Sheets coming tonight because he couldn't get back in time, but this is what we got. So I would love to hear from you guys. I like what Rhodey's doing and similar to what I'm doing. I probably have a little too much love for this KC side of things. And I think I might want to eliminate that and maybe build out a little bit more with, I do have a lot of the Angels anyway, but maybe get some Houston instead of KC. The problem is the pricing just gets very, very tough for Houston when you look at the guys you want to play like Alvarez. Altuve I do have a lot of because he fits a nice second base spot. But Bregman's price on DraftKings, he really hasn't warranted at all. Very much cheaper on FanDuel. Tucker, very expensive, obviously. Even Brantley is affordable, but not a guy with a lot of power. So that's not my favorite. Rhodey likes the Minnesota-Baltimore on FanDuel mini stacks. I like it. I can get behind it. I'm not as high on Baltimore as everybody else is. You have an extreme ground ball pitcher, and I just don't like stacking on full slates against extreme ground ball pitchers unless it's an elite offense against them. And even as he struggles, he's given up what? He hasn't given up more than one home run in a game this year. You can run on him. So I like the idea of getting some, you can play the Mullins thing. I like the little mini stacks for Baltimore more than I do the full stacks. Just Fetty just always does just enough to not quite get hammered, except for that one horrible outing against the Mets where they scored like 6 runs in like an inning or something like that off of him. But most of the time he's just an extreme ground ball guy. And I think we think pitchers are bad because they don't put up, big DFS performances like Martin Perez in the past and another extreme ground ball guy. Everybody tried to pick on Martin Perez for 5 years. And I was just sitting there saying how stupid everybody in the industry is, talking about every day the best stack is the stack against Perez. And now you see what he's been able to do. So there you go. How do I feel about one-off? Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I'm never going to disagree with a one-off for a minimum cost guy, basically. I wouldn't do it if he was batting 9th, but he's batting 6th. So I absolutely have some Bride from Oakland as a one-off at third base. So I have no problem with that whatsoever. And while third base is really strong at the top today, unless you're playing Hayes in the middle, I don't think there's a whole bunch of other options that I love at third base in the middle ground. So going all the way down does make some sense. And I think that's totally viable to Jonah Bride for the A's at 2K. There's just a lot of value you can fit in and basically get what the stacks you want if you're willing to go for some of those value plays, which is what you'll have to do to fit in the Houstons of the world, because that's what's going to happen. Is Houston is not going to end up being very owned tonight. Let me just double check that on DraftKings. On FanDuel, I think they will be owned. On DraftKings, I don't have anybody owned on their side because they're just very hard to get in. Favorite play from Houston, the one who would be owned a little. Altuve is projected to be 5%. I'll take the over on that. I think Altuve will be higher than 5% owned, but you really don't have anybody owned on Houston. And it's kind of a Trevor Williams versus a Houston offense that, like, if this matchup was like last year or the year before, Houston would be the chalk on this slate. And Trevor Williams has been better, but he's not enough better to not play Houston here. So I definitely can get behind that. The other problem with Houston is we have these incredible heat wave games that gets nullified by playing in Houston. So we don't get that boost to our bats. It's a little bit why I didn't end up with as many Red Sox as I thought I was going to, because it's always great hitting. It's always great to be hitting against Detroit in Boston, but you don't have great hitting conditions today in terms of the weather, where on other stadiums, you've got, weather that we rarely see. I mean, Pittsburgh being 93 degrees. I don't even remember seeing that in recent times. So hashtag global warming is real. Like, it's crazy. I do like the Red Sox. I just think they're a little further down for me. I'm totally fine with the Red Sox as a full stack, as a mini stack. The other problem facing the Red Sox today is that everybody's going to say things, and this is one of my issues with what other sites do, the way people talk about sports in general. Andrew Wiggins was considered, he was on the list before the season, I think, as the second, they had him as the second biggest bust in all of sports history. This was the second best player on a finals, on an NBA championship team. This is a little bit of the example of how people talk about pitchers. So they take Bo Brisky from Detroit and just say, well, he sucks because this number is this and this number is this. Well, in his actual starts lately, all I've seen is a guy who's improving, who's got decent talent. Now, it's not a good matchup. I don't expect him to have a great outing or anything. But don't just believe what everybody says when they say, oh, these guys suck and this and that. These guys have futures. And by the way, Brisky has just shut down Toronto and the Yankees and Texas in his last 3 starts. So before we just go, oh, it's obviously the Red Sox need to be played. It's not as obvious as it seems. And the fact that they are probably going to be, I mean, they can't be that high owned because they're pricing, but they'll be owned in the 5 to 10% range, which on this slate is actually quite a bit. The only guys you're going to see really crazy, I think you're going to see a lot of ownership on the Angels. I think you're going to see a lot of ownership on the Cardinals. And I think you're going to see a decent amount of ownership on Minnesota and the Braves. So those are the guys who are going to be the most popular stacks tonight. All right, guys, I'm going to get out of here in like 2 minutes. So any other questions, fire them on in. I'm going to answer them. And then we're going to hopefully see somebody else from TrueDFS take one down. Rody got his. I got one last week. We want to start getting to the every night phase where one of us takes it down every night. Okay, so one of you guys has to win one. We actually, you know what? I'm going to include K9 Bronco. Keeps crushing it on FanDuel. Now, they're not the same size tournaments, but still winning tournaments is fucking awesome. That's what we do this for. And just really, really happy for everybody who's doing well. And we're here to help. Rody has been awesome in Discord, in addition to going out there winning all the money. Hopefully for Rody, this will start that chain like he did last year. He just went on a freaking tear. And maybe that's the start of it last night. And hopefully my tear is getting going. I keep getting the mini tears. I keep getting I've been doing really well and winning one tournament a week, basically one pretty big tournament, making a 10 to 20K profit on one day of the week, which has more than paid for the rest of my week. But I haven't had those that string together yet. So which would be nice to get a few to string together. And would more importantly, it'd be nice for the whole TrueDFS team to string a few together here tonight. So if there's any other questions, any other thoughts, let me know. Otherwise, I am going to get out of here and finish my builds. But I think we talked through some main things. Again, I really like Washington. I like Pittsburgh. I like LA, Houston, St. Louis, and KC. And it's going to be mixing and matching a bunch of those because I think that, while the ownership is going heavily towards the Angels and I don't mind it, I can eat a little bit of that chalk if I'm going to be playing an unowned Pittsburgh or a lower than they should be owned Washington team. So that's what I'm doing. Anyway, guys, we appreciate y'all. Thank you for being loyal to TrueDFS. And we are going to keep making some money. If you're not in our Discord already, you are losing money. You're making a mistake because it's a great Discord and we've got a great channel here. And Rody is certainly the man who's done the most work in there. So we really appreciate it. And he got a well-deserved win last night. So good luck to everybody tonight. And hopefully we'll see some people take some down. Let's go.